Hello again and welcome to this second part of the epic massive review of Justitian, the source book or collection of two source books for the SIXMOREVODKA's Degenesis role-playing game. Here I will review Justitian Moloch, the second book, which details all the different non-play characters in Justitian, and without further ado, let's get into it. Here you can see the cover of Justitian Moloch, following very much the same stylings as the Righteous Fist. The cover is kind of a dark red metallic image, and it captures at least, let's say, the bloodiness of Justitian and its inhabitants. And in these front pages we also have the quote, "If you want peace, be prepared for war." And conflict is sure to ensue with the different inhabitants of Justitian. In the beginning there is a prologue and some flavor text and descriptions, or a couple of words about Justitian. There is some flavor text about Bosch, the leader of the scrapper cartel, and then there is information about arriving in Justitian. Some information concerning the game, how to prepare for the game, and very good set again of rumors. The rumor mill in the city of Justitian, and then the players have the possibility of finding out different rumors. I think this is one of the sections that my players have enjoyed the most, as it gives them an opportunity of hearing some stray rumors and establishing background to different locations here to Justitian, and getting glimpses of what is happening in the background of the city itself. So this already offers you possibilities of putting in different plot points, different hints about what is happening in the city. So very useful for the GM and enjoyable also for the players. Then the Moloch book begins, and the designers have decided to split the information here according to different groups, different factions, and first the Spitalians are detailed. The Spitalians detailed here in Justitian range from the very powerful leaders of the Spitalians, the consultants and leaders of the preservists like Chancellor, to more, let's say, low-ranking members who have different fates and different ideas about what to do with the information and chances that they have. So we have Kessler, who is very much in conflict with Chancellor, the leader of the preservists, and some main plot points are included in the descriptions. And then we have people like Chrysler and Serval, who are also preservists but of lesser rank and have different roles in the game. I think it's interesting that the Spitalians actually start this section and not the judges. The descriptions here follow very much the style established in the Black Atlantic, but very much bring it forward with full portraits of these different characters, and suffice it to say that they are really beautiful and of super high quality. So there is one portrait on the other side, and again a full description of the character on the other, including all their stats, different potentials, equipment, and role-playing advice. And this really established the high quality of the Moloch book, and the descriptions of the Spitalians continue with different, let's say, more bureaucratic characters like Elliot Halcamp, some village doctor types, and then some Spitalians who really are working to discover important information, how to deal with the Ferromancers or the aftermath of the Ferromancer migrant, or to discover the mysteries related to the Marauders. I think this part already gives you a large number of different plots, and just working with these Spitalian characters, I'm sure that the player characters have a lot of things to discover and lots of characters to interact with. One of the more atypical ones is Rotter, a Spitalian who has come under the influence of a douche-shiny psychonaut and is trying to perform some tasks for his master in the city, and it will be a quite intriguing and strange encounter for any player characters. The book continues with description of the chroniclers, and here again I think the book manages to surprise us and to reveal more interesting characters and background of the chronicler cult. We have people like Echo and Deselect who demonstrate a bit different aspects of this cult. Echo being one of the monitors who are keeping watch on what is happening in the city of Justitian, and Deselect is kind of a collector of secrets and bygone artifacts, and is actually linked to the character of Ampere in the Black Atlantic. So here again is a nice tie to the earlier adventures, and a very personal character that I'm sure the players will have fun occasions to interact with. The description of the chroniclers continues with Eliza and Aiello, again really different from the chroniclers we've seen so far. Eliza being a sleeper hunter who is really engaged on her mission to bring down sleepers and eradicate their influence from the cult. And then we also have the character of Lode, who is a survivor of the Toulon fracas, where the chroniclers participated in the Operation Mirage and failed to bring down the ruler of Toulon. And we have also a long-time favorite, Decoy 5, making an appearance and coming back now to find the Scalar Nullify and finish him off for all the manipulation and let's say evil things that Impulse has managed to perform. The character of Elias, also an interesting one, showing something about the inner workings of the Chronicle cult, how they maintain and manage different identities and make people disappear, and use the shadow program to create a kind of dirty works section for this cult. The most, let's say, powerful ones of this cult are mentioned here, or a couple of them at least, being the Fragment Impulse, who is very much involved in the creation, accidental creation of the Needles, who are kind of a renegade group of chroniclers. And then there is, of course, the Scalar Nullify, who is one of the great bad guys in the Degenesis. Has already been present since the beginning in Embargo, the initial adventure in Degenesis, and here it makes a full appearance with all the stats and a great portrait of this character. So really lots of different different opportunities for great encounters for your players. Of course, it might be very likely that they will never encounter Nullify in flesh, as he most likely dwells in the low levels of the central cluster. One very Darth Vaderian character is in the form of Corium, the Needle, who makes an appearance and has been allying with the Palers underneath the city in the tunnels, and again makes a very scary antagonist for any players. I think the Spitalian section was very interesting, full of plot points, but the Chronicle section manages to even better this achievement and is simply a lot, let's say, maybe not a lot more interesting, but reveals lots of super surprising points about the chronicler activities in Justitian. Then there is a section on the Helvetics, and the Helvetic cult as a whole has not seen a lot of development. There have not been very many Helvetic characters overall in different books on Degenesis, and unfortunately Justitian does not bring very many Helvetics here, but there are some who are working in maintaining the relations between the Helvetics and the judges, and also some who are operating to repair the cleft in Justitian. The cleft, the crack in Justitian. The crack being the collapse of certain tunnels which then lead into the Chronicle underground, and this creates many different adventure opportunities. The few Helvetics displayed here are all a bit different from each other, one simply being shown in full heavy armor, and one being kind of a bureaucrat type. And I think this variety, of course, will be nice for the players to encounter. But for my taste, maybe the Helvetic section is a bit slight and could be made a bit bigger with the expense of some other sections. Then comes the part on the judges, who are the leading cult, the most powerful cult in Justitian, and of course they begin with the most influential member, the Supreme Judge Arcot, and we get a glimpse of his mind and his plans for the city and how he is currently doing. And then his not polar opposite but companion, the Senator Rutgar, who is behind many different plots, not only in Justitian but in different books, is given a lot of detail also, and this duo kind of shows the power dynamic inside the cult of the judges. And again, lots of different plot points for the players to follow. The section on judges really goes on to the different activities of the judges and their black operations in the form of the black judges, but also offers really differing characters. Not everyone is a judge who is involved in laying down the law or enforcing the law. Some are investigators, some are more executioners, and some are trying to gain political influence. So there is very nice amounts of variety here. And there are interesting also a couple of members of these traditional judge families who are very powerful in Justitian and form the majority of the advocates. The section on judges is very well made, offers a lot of different characters, some suitable for more investigative type adventures, others for more action-oriented ones, and nicely this section fleshed out the cult of the judges in Justitian. The part on clanners then goes on to describe a couple of members of the traditional clans in Justitian, so not only the attacking ones, and again we are given glimpses into different plots, how one of them is involved in pit fights in Justitian, is supporting the renegade scrapper Steelbeam, and another one is interested in bringing down the current power structure altogether and usurping the judges and chroniclers of Justitian. And interestingly, again, here is a member of the Firewatch, so it's nice to see that this much attention has been paid to the, let's say, kind of regular life in Justitian, just like in the description in the Righteous Fist source book. Then the section on planners also includes a couple of really different characters. One in the figure of Belmondo, who is kind of, let's say, person involved in the maintenance of the city in the defiled streets, really a kind of down on his luck, maybe not completely sane person. And then we have Gotterdam, who has a really dark secret and dark origin that he's not fully aware of. There are also a couple of clanner infiltrators in the city who are looking forward to bringing down the ruling judges and chroniclers. Interestingly, also the members of the Steelmasters are described here. So this is a captive group held by the judges for the crimes of their ancestors, and they keep producing weapons for the judges in Justitian. And of course they are involved in their own struggles for freedom, for influence, and for power in the city. Then the book goes on to describe the scrappers, and here we again see the plurality, the diversity of different scrappers. We have the most powerful man in Justitian being cartel leader Bosch, and then a number of his underlings like Buto the Bookie, or then we have Arjen and others. And here we get some insight into the lives of the scrappers, the workings of the cartel, and then the third brother of Eisenhower and the blacksmith Steelbeam makes an appearance here and provides yet another antagonist for the adventurers who might have met the others in the previous adventures. Steelbeam being a really character who does not care for anything except revenge for the murders of his brothers. So fun times ahead for the players. There are then really different scrapper types also in the form of Bumblebee, who is a manufacturer, a slightly comical looking one, and really different from the ones that we've seen before. And also King Cockroach falls largely in the same category. And then we have really a different scrappers in Jordis and her protege Hostin, who are living among the more down on the luck, more destitute people, and trying to take care of children in the city of Justitian. And again, nice inclusion of different types of characters who are not simple fighters, simple potters, but provide different opportunities for bringing different plots together. The section on scrappers is of really excellent quality, and I think continues the high standard set by the preceding chapters. The Neolibians are given a lot less space as they are not really influential in Justitian, so a couple of important ones are mentioned here, but with only 3 Neolibians altogether there is not much to go with. So they were clearly far more visible in Toulon, for example. These Scourgers also merit a couple of event appearances here, but they are not as memorable maybe as some other Scourgers or other characters in Justitian, and it's simply a matter of the fact that there is such a huge number of different NPCs in the books. There is a simple lone Anubian as well. So African characters here, the number are quite less than the amount of characters from other cults. Jehannamites here receive some interesting members like Baruch or Naraka, who are really central players, and of course Naraka the Arenoid is sure to be an interesting NPC as one of the parts of Ares the Ram. So if your players have encountered Ifrit in the Black Atlantic, then Naraka is sure to remind them of the importance and danger that Ares presents. And of course he is here looking for the Jehamin's will. The Jehamites are followed by the Apocalyptics, and I think here again the book continues to shine with different descriptions of the apocalyptic flocks. In Justitian they are divided into different groups who are antagonistic, and behind these flocks is the very powerful Mother of Ravens, quite an enigmatic character. I don't think that everything has been revealed about the Mother of Ravens. There have been different hints about her origins, her connections to Jerome Getrell, the main bad guy, main antagonist of the Degenesis world, but not everything has been revealed. However, here again we receive a lot of information about her influence and ability to control other people, to perceive some events happening in the future and to affect the lives of every person in Justitian. The Mother of Ravens is followed by different characters like Joseph Butcher and Dejan, who are clearly under her influence. And then the section on apocalyptics finishes with some apocalyptic killers and fighters who will make nice or disturbing adversaries for the players. Then we have the section on the Anabaptists, and as a counterpoint to all the wealth of information about the cult in the Black Atlantic, here the Anabaptists play a small role. We have the old Anabaptist Samuel, and then Uriah, and then the ascetic Goslar, who is tied into a very interesting plot about a sleeper present in the city. so there is a lot less to go about with the Anabaptist characters, but I think they have been well written and have a lot of variety in themselves and provide very different plot points, for example, from the Helvetics or the Chroniclers. One of my favorite parts of the book is the section on failures, because again, the failures like the Helvetics have been kept quite in the background in the different Degenesis source books. There has not been a wealth of different failure characters, mainly Arnica in the Black Atlantic, and here we see for the first time a bit more about this elusive cult. And we have descriptions of the failures who have invaded the underground of Justitian. We have Justitian and Kreda, who are kind of the foot soldiers in the struggle, and then we have Vesna, the failure leader. And of course, these failures, even if they are motivated by their interest in the secrets of the chroniclers, the presence of information about the sleepers in Justitian, they are also manipulated and controlled by some very powerful persons. The book comes close to finishing with the section titled From Hell, which reflects a similar part in the Degenesis main rulebook, where the very powerful antagonistic factions are described. So here we have sleepers, we have marauders, we have people related to the free spirit. And this begins with the sleeper character of Beryl, an interesting addition, who is being tracked by Eliza, has connections to Goslar. And here again we see how this book has been structured so that these characters are really interlinked, and you need to read the book quite thoroughly to understand the connections between the different NPCs. And I think the game really gets interesting when you take somebody who has nothing to do with another NPC and see what will happen when they interact and they meet, and what can come of this interaction. Then we have surprisingly also descriptions of Itis and Metis, so Ferromancers who are harbingers of the rebirth of Marquand the Ferromancer. Again, one main plot in these Justitian books, also involving different Spitalian characters, and here there is an opportunity for the players to prevent the rebirth of this Ferromancer king, but that will require quite a lot of investigative work. And one of my favorite NPCs follows in the character of Trice, a sleeper prophet. We witnessed the fate of Helios, the silver prophet, in the Black Atlantic, and here we have another one who is now working behind the Baylor invasion of the Chronicler tunnels. Sometimes I think it's quite hard to keep track of the motivations of the different sleepers, different marauders, as they are at times either supporting the different cults or working against them to undermine their activities. Then this chapter continues with the description of the head collector, a character already introduced in the main Degenesis rulebook as potential scrapper, but here it's revealed that he's not exactly a scrapper, but something far worse. It's interesting to see how really in a surprise move the head collector is tied into major events in the history of Justitian, in the history of the city wars, and is really a real puzzle for the players to discover what exactly the head collector is. And again, he has been tied into different other NPCs, mainly the scrapper Zanger. And I think this is one plot where I as GM will be having maybe some trouble in figuring out how I wish to introduce these to the players. Of course, the head collector and headless bodies will be quite simple, but then how to deal with the connection to Exalt and the Brightworks might become a bit more problematic, but let's see. The book finishes the chapter from Hell with these descriptions, and then continues with a section named Fallout. The section Fallout was not first included in the kind of beta release of this book, but in the final version it is included, and it really contains interesting information and background details about the future of the Degenesis timeline, where these adventures will continue. There is some flavor text in the form of different communications between important people really in the deep history of the world, and then an explanation of Exalt. Exalt has been described previously in some detail in the different books, and here receives a couple of pages of information about its importance in Vorka and the world in general. The city used to be one of the bygone locations where civilization was starting to rise, thanks to the activities of the sleepers and the sleeper prophets, but currently is in ruins, which they are trying to rebuild. Unfortunately, the city contains very powerful mnemonic reprogramming machinery, is actually completely configurable to some extent, as when players will enter the city, they will not discover simple paths leading through the city, but a really ever-changing locations where machinery is changing the architecture all the time. So here we see some information about the city of Exalt and how it relates to the main plot of the Carbon and the plan to go to the Baikonur space station. And this is a developing plot which has been kind of pre-shadowed in the Black Atlantic, and here we see some details about the possible future and what will happen as we get closer to Baikonur and closer to space. The book finishes with a couple of pages titled The Day After Tomorrow, and this really set out to detail the future of the world of Degenesis and the major plot points that we'll be focusing on later. It remains to be seen what will be the future products for Degenesis, as Justitian is a massive one, and I think of course a lot depends on its reception and its popularity and how much players will be using it. As a whole, Justitian in these two books, Moloch and the Righteous Fist, create a complex and massive sandbox environment, and Moloch complements the Righteous Fist beautifully with descriptions of these different NPCs and offers tons of different plot points tons of possibilities for adventure and for creating a memorable and livable Justitian. It's quite hard now to describe the impact of the book without playing through some of the adventures. Our players will be soon going into Justitian, and then we will see how this adventure will unfold. But think about the sheer scope and the amount of information in Justitian. I think this is one of the best products of this year, certainly the most important product for Degenesis, and as a whole a great achievement for role-playing game design. And for this I have to applaud the creators of these books. They have managed to create a great environment, a great world for players to live in and to experience. If you're thinking about whether it would be worth your while to look into this book, I think this is not only super important for the players of and game masters of Degenesis, but also for everyone interested in world creation, interested in campaign creation, or how to create different types of sandbox campaigns. So to finish off this review, I will heartily recommend for you to download these books from the Degenesis.com website, and also to purchase the books from the same website. Okay, if you like this interview, to finish, if you like this review, make sure to give it a like, give it a subscribe, and then follow the channel for all things related to role-playing games and to Degenesis. Thank you.